What if I told you the greatest battle you'll ever fight is not against the world, not against your circumstances, not even against the people who doubt you? It's against yourself? Against the small, quiet voice inside your head that whispers, "You're not ready. You're not capable. Who are you to even try?" That voice has a name. It's called self-doubt. And the cruel thing about self-doubt is that it doesn't shout. It doesn't rage. It whispers. And because it whispers, it feels believable. That is why countless men and women, generation after generation, live their entire lives far below their true potential. Not because they lacked talent, not because opportunity never appeared, but because when life placed them on the edge of greatness, they listened to the whisper and stepped back instead of forward. But here is the brutal Stoic truth. Self-doubt is not reality. It is not who you are. It is not an unchangeable fact. It is a story, a trick of the mind, a habit repeated so many times that you confuse it with truth. And if it is only a habit, then like every habit, it can be broken. This is where the transformation begins. Because the moment you decide to change how you respond to your thoughts, you rip the roots of doubt out of your soul forever. Every emperor, every warrior, every philosopher, every leader who ever walked this earth has carried moments of doubt. Marcus Aurelius carried them. Seneca carried them. Epictetus carried them. The difference is, they refused to be ruled by them. They mastered doubt before doubt mastered them. They discovered that the mind can be a prison, locking you inside invisible walls, or it can be your greatest weapon, freeing you to shape the life you were born to live. And here is the secret. Freedom never comes by waiting for confidence to magically appear. It comes by shifting the way you think, by choosing how you interpret pain, by refusing to be crushed by failure, and by standing firm in how you see yourself when no one else is watching. In this journey, we will walk together through 12 mindset shifts. Think of each one as a blade, slicing into the fabric of self-doubt until nothing of it remains. These shifts will show you how to trust yourself when the world remains silent, how to transform pain into power, how to recover from setbacks without losing belief, how to build daily habits that make confidence your natural state. They will teach you the art of balance between ego and humility. They will guide you in visualizing a future so powerful it silences fear. And they will give you the clarity to live each day with unshakable purpose. Understand this. This is not abstract theory. This is practice. It is a roadmap carved from ancient Stoic wisdom, sharpened by modern psychology, and tested by real lives of those who walked through fire and emerged stronger. If you embrace these shifts, you will no longer be the person who waits. You will no longer be the person who hesitates, who questions if they are enough, who doubts at the very edge of possibility. You will become the person who knows. And once you know, once you see yourself as the Stoics did, not ruled by fear, not controlled by whispers, self-doubt loses all of its power over you. Stop chasing validation. Start building trust in yourself. If you want to crush self-doubt at the roots, this is where it begins. Cutting away the constant hunger for approval that secretly fuels it. Most people don't even realize how much of their lives are spent bowing to the judgment of others. We shape our choices based on what friends, family, or colleagues might say. We post something online and then sit in silence, waiting for likes and comments to confirm our worth. We hold back our ideas because we fear disapproval, and slowly, without noticing, this habit forges an invisible cage, one where self-doubt stands as the warden. Because the moment your confidence depends on the approval of others, it will collapse every time their opinion shifts. Think for a second how fragile that foundation is. People are inconsistent. They adore you today, criticize you tomorrow. Their moods change, their standards change, and often their judgment has nothing to do with you at all. It's a projection of their own insecurities, fears, and frustrations. Yet if your sense of worth is tied to those unstable tides, then you'll always wonder, am I good enough today? This is why so many capable, talented people stay small, not because they lack ability, but because they open the door for self-doubt every time they rely on someone else's applause. The shift begins the moment you decide your own voice must weigh more than the crowd's, that you no longer need clapping hands to keep moving forward. Now, this doesn't mean arrogance. It doesn't mean plugging your ears to all feedback. It means learning to separate guidance that sharpens you from validation that enslaves you. The great champions and thinkers of history had mentors, yes, but they didn't need permission to walk their path. They trusted their vision even when no one else understood it. The Stoics spoke clearly about this. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, yet we care more about their opinion than our own." That paradox is the fuel of self-doubt. You say you love yourself, but then you hand your self-worth to strangers, critics, or even loved ones whose perspective may be clouded. Why let them dictate how far you go? Why let their limited vision shrink your life? Imagine how many dreams were buried because someone waited for approval. The writer who never finished their book because no one cheered them on. The professional who stayed silent in meetings because they feared their idea wasn't good enough. The dreamer who never started the business because they were terrified of being laughed at. In every single case, the tragedy wasn't lack of talent, it was lack of trust. They believed the lie of doubt because they were waiting for someone else to say, "You're ready, here's the reality." No one will ever give you that permission. You must give it to yourself. So how do you begin trusting yourself? You build evidence. Self-trust is not just a mantra you repeat. It's a record you create with your own actions. Start small. Keep the promises you make to yourself, no matter how minor. If you say you'll wake up early, do it. If you commit to writing one page, exercising for 20 minutes, or sending that message you've been avoiding, follow through. Each act of consistency is a vote for confidence, a reminder that says, "I can rely on me." Over time, those votes stack up until your self-trust becomes unshakable. And when your trust in yourself is strong, doubt has no soil left to grow in. This also means changing how you interpret silence and criticism. Silence does not mean you lack worth. Criticism does not mean you lack ability. These are just signals, neutral, empty of ultimate meaning. Silence is not the absence of value, only the absence of noise. Criticism is not a verdict, only one person's opinion. When you stop handing power to these things, you stop feeding the voice of doubt. There's a quiet but unmistakable power in people who no longer seek validation. You feel it the moment they enter a room. They don't over-explain themselves. They don't beg to be understood. They don't shrink under questions. They carry themselves with the calm authority of someone whose approval comes from within, and that energy is magnetic. Ironically, people end up respecting you far more once you stop begging for their respect. So pause and ask yourself, how much of your life has been lived for applause? How many decisions have you delayed waiting for someone else to nod first? And what would your life look like if you stopped waiting? If you already trusted yourself enough, what would you do differently today? The mindset shift is this. Stop seeking validation. Start trusting yourself. When you make that choice, the cage begins to break. Doubt starts losing its authority. Because you've cut off its fuel source. You no longer need the world's permission. You've chosen yourself. That choice is the first real step toward destroying self-doubt forever. Now comes the second shift. Build mental strength like a champion. Because self-doubt thrives in weakness. It grows in the cracks of an undisciplined mind, in the empty spaces where fear, fatigue, and hesitation roam freely. If you want to destroy it, you need more than feel-good affirmations. You need strength. Not just physical strength, but the mental toughness that carries you through uncertainty. This is why the second Stoic mindset shift is learning to build mental strength like a champion. Champions don't wait for confidence to magically appear. They manufacture it through discipline, resilience, and relentless persistence. When we see great athletes, thinkers, or leaders, we admire their triumphs, the medals, the speeches, the victories. But what truly defines them is not those public moments. It's the unseen grind. The runner lacing up at 5 a.m. in the cold while no one is watching. The writer staring at a blank page day after day without inspiration but refusing to quit. The leader making tough decisions in the fog of uncertainty. These quiet, unglamorous acts are what build an inner fortress against doubt. Mental strength doesn't mean fear and insecurity disappear. Champions feel both, but they do not obey them. They acknowledge the feelings, then move forward anyway. They know that waiting until you feel ready is the fastest way to stay stuck forever. Readiness isn't something you wait for, it's something you generate by acting despite uncertainty. Every time you do, you prove that self-doubt is lying. The Stoics remind us, the only true control we have is over our thoughts and actions. We cannot control what life throws at us. We cannot predict outcomes, but we can always control our preparation, our responses, and the effort we give. Building mental strength means shifting attention away from fear of the unknown and toward discipline in the present moment. That single shift dismantles self-doubt because it roots your confidence in preparation, not in the illusion of guarantees. Think about it. Self-doubt usually comes dressed as questions. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if they laugh? But when you've trained like a champion, those questions lose their sting because you already know your answer. You've done the work. You've survived the grind. You've practiced resilience so much that setbacks don't break you. You no longer need certainty of outcome because you've built certainty of effort, and that is the bedrock of real confidence. And this is not theory, it's practice. Building mental strength happens in small daily choices. Choosing to finish the task when you'd rather stop. Choosing to have the hard conversation instead of running from it. Choosing to stay on course when distractions are pulling at you from every angle. Each choice is like lifting a weight in the mental gym. At first, it's exhausting, but repetition builds strength, and eventually, that strength becomes your natural state. One more truth. Champions are not machines. They don't burn themselves out to ashes. They understand that recovery, rest, reflection, balance is part of toughness. Why? Because when you take care of your body and mind, you prove to yourself that you are worth investing in. That daily act of self-respect is itself a weapon against doubt, because you've built undeniable evidence that you value yourself. So here's the mindset shift. Stop waiting to feel confident. Start training your mind like a champion. Treat doubts the way athletes treat resistance, not as an obstacle, but as part of the training itself. Build habits of discipline and recovery, and watch as self-doubt loses every ounce of power it once had. Face challenges with intention, not by accident. In time, you'll come to understand that confidence isn't a matter of luck or something you merely hope to stumble upon. It's something forged, something earned, and once you've built it, self-doubt has no space left to breathe. Ask yourself honestly, where in your life are you still showing up like an amateur, waiting, hesitating, making excuses? And what would shift if you began treating your mind the same way a champion trains their body, with consistency, with discipline, with the willingness to endure discomfort in exchange for growth? That is the battlefield where doubt dies. That is the birthplace of real strength. Turn pain into purpose, because that transformation is what suffocates doubt. Self-doubt has always had a complicated relationship with pain. For most people, pain becomes the so-called evidence that they're not strong enough, not worthy enough, not destined to win. When life stings, through rejection, failure, heartbreak, or disappointment, doubt rushes in with its venom. See, you weren't capable. You never should have even tried. And the more you resist or fear pain, the louder that inner voice becomes. The more it convinces you pain is proof of weakness. But here's the deeper truth. Pain is not the proof of your failure. Pain is proof that you are alive, stretching, stepping onto the road of growth. And when you reshape the meaning of pain into something purposeful, self-doubt shrivels. Every struggle transforms into fuel instead of evidence against you. Think about it. Nearly every person you admire carries a story of pain that became the foundation of their greatness. The artist who turned heartbreak into timeless beauty. The leader who transformed personal suffering into compassion and service. The athlete who used injury as the spark for the greatest comeback of their career. If they had obeyed the voice of doubt, they would have stopped at the pain. But they didn't. They shifted. They redefined pain. Not as a signal to quit, but as a signal to rise, to create, to transform. The Stoics understood this with clarity. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." What does that really mean? It means pain is not your enemy, not a roadblock. Pain is the road itself. The mindset shift is simple yet radical. Don't ask why me in the face of difficulty. Instead, ask, what is this here to teach me? Pain stops being something you merely endure and becomes something you use. And once you learn to use it, self-doubt begins to lose its grip. There's a reason why those who've endured deep suffering often emerge with a kind of strength others can't fathom. They discovered what most people spend their lives avoiding. That purpose forged in the fire of pain is indestructible. A life without struggle may feel safe and comfortable, but it rarely creates conviction. Conviction is born in scars. And once conviction takes root, doubt cannot survive. So how do you make this shift in practice? First, you must stop running from pain. Avoidance is the breeding ground of self-doubt. Every time you numb yourself, distract yourself, or escape, you silently reinforce the belief that you can't handle reality. But when you face pain directly, when you sit with it, reflect on it, and ask what it demands of you, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than you believed. That proof rewires your relationship with yourself. Second, you must frame pain as a teacher. Instead of asking, "What did this cost me?" ask, "What can this give me?" Rejection can teach resilience. Failure can teach strategy. Loss can teach empathy. There is always a lesson, but you'll only see it once you stop labeling pain as the enemy. Pain is not here to break you. It's here to shape you. Third, connect your pain to a purpose greater than yourself. The strongest leaders, champions, and creators don't endure suffering just for themselves. They turn it outward, transforming it into inspiration, service, and creation. When you take the lessons carved out of hardship and use them to help, to lead, to uplift, pain stops being wasted. It becomes meaningful. And meaning is the ultimate antidote to doubt. Because once you know why you endured, the question of whether you're capable simply disappears. Imagine your life if every painful moment you've ever lived wasn't wasted, but instead woven into a story of purpose. Imagine looking back at rejection, heartbreak, and failure not with resentment, but with gratitude, because those very wounds became the reason you stand taller today. That is the freedom of this mindset shift. Pain stops being evidence of your limits and starts being the pathway to your strength. So when self-doubt whispers in the middle of suffering, when it says, "You can't handle this," "You're not good enough," "Just give up," pause and ask yourself instead, how can I turn this into purpose? What meaning can I carve from this that will make me stronger? That single question flips the script completely. Suddenly, pain isn't proof against you. It's proof for you. Proof that you're being refined, not reduced. The mindset shift is simple yet life-altering. Pain is not the end of your story. Pain is the beginning of purpose. And when you decide to see it this way, self-doubt is robbed of its most powerful weapon. It can no longer twist struggle into weakness. Instead, every struggle becomes a reminder that you are capable of creating meaning out of whatever life throws at you. That is how transforming pain into purpose kills doubt at its root. Practice. Surrender. Let go of what you cannot control. One of the most corrosive sources of self-doubt comes from the illusion of control. We cling desperately to outcomes, to people, to circumstances we wish would bend to our will. And when they don't align, when life resists our grip, we immediately turn inward. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should have done more. Maybe this failure is my fault. Doubt thrives in the gap between what we want to control and what we truly can. The mindset shift that severs this cycle is surrender. The ability to release what lies outside your command and pour your energy into what is yours alone, your actions, your choices, your thoughts. Self-doubt thrives when energy is wasted trying to manage the unmanageable. We cannot dictate how others see us. We cannot dictate when opportunity will arrive. We cannot dictate the unpredictable turns of fortune or misfortune life throws in our path. Yet most people drain themselves trying. And when the world refuses to obey, they conclude that they must be the problem. This is the trap. The harder you try to control the uncontrollable, the more powerless you feel, and the more doubt you nurture. The Stoics built their entire philosophy around escaping this very trap. Epictetus once declared, "Some things are in our control, and others are not. If you confuse them, you will suffer." The wisdom of that line has echoed for centuries, and even modern psychology now confirms it. Anxiety, fear, and doubt spiral out of control the moment you fixate on outcomes you cannot command. But when you embrace the truth of limits, when you accept that certain results will never fully belong to you, you unlock a new strength. Because what is within your grasp has always been enough. Your effort, your perspective, your choices, your response. Think back to a moment when you obsessed over something far outside your control. Perhaps you were waiting for an answer from someone whose opinion mattered. Perhaps you were hoping for a result on a project that depended on more than just your hands. Remember how powerless you felt? How the silence, the waiting, the unknown began feeding questions. Did I fail? Should I have done more? Am I even capable? That spiral of doubt didn't come from reality. It was born from clinging to something that was never yours. Now imagine shifting your energy. Instead of worrying about what they might say, what they might do, or whether events will tilt in your favor, you anchor yourself to the ground that can never be taken away. Your own actions. You show up with your best work. You choose honesty over shortcuts. You hold discipline when it would be easier to quit. You practice patience even in silence. Suddenly, the noise quiets. Doubt starves because you have refused to feed it with questions that have no answers. Understand this. Surrender is not weakness. Weakness is thrashing against the tide, exhausting yourself trying to move waters that will never bend to your will. Strength is recognizing that the tide is not yours to control and focusing instead on how you swim. Champions know this. They don't waste mental energy calculating the scoreboard or begging for the roar of the crowd. Their eyes stay locked on the one thing no one can take away, the discipline they can apply, the game they can play, the mindset they can hold. And because of this, they cut doubt off at its root. So here's the practice. In every moment of tension, ask yourself, is this mine to control or not? If it is, act without hesitation. If it isn't, let it go. Write it down. Say it aloud. Do whatever you must to remind yourself, this is not mine to carry. Each time you do this, you are training your mind to drop the heavy stones of doubt that never belonged to you in the first place. This is not apathy. You still care about outcomes, about love, about success. But you recognize where your responsibility ends and where fate begins. That clarity is freedom. It severs doubt before it multiplies. Because doubt thrives in questions no one can ever answer. Will they like me? Will this work? Will the timing be right? None of those matter. What matters is whether you showed up with integrity, whether you gave your all, whether you lived aligned with your values. That is enough. That will always be enough. So here's the shift. Surrender what is not yours and double down on what is. Release the weight of opinions you cannot command. Release outcomes you cannot dictate. Release the clock of timing you cannot speed up. Instead, own your effort, your focus, your actions. And here lies the paradox. When you release what was never yours, you don't lose power, you gain it. In that space of clarity, self-doubt starves, because doubt feeds only on chaos. When you simplify and surrender, you take away its food. The mindset shift is simple. Stop trying to control what was never yours and start mastering what has always been yours. That is true surrender. And within that surrender lies the kind of unshakable confidence that dissolves doubt forever. Now comes the next blade against doubt. Visualize a future that silences fear. Self-doubt thrives wherever vision is absent. When your future looks vague, uncertain, undefined, your mind fills the blank canvas with shadows. Fear creeps in. The whispers begin. You don't know where you're going. Maybe you're lost. Maybe you're not capable of more. But here is the truth. The future does not arrive fully formed. It is imagined first, then built brick by brick. When you visualize a future with clarity, you strip doubt of its greatest weapon, uncertainty. You replace hesitation with direction. You silence fear with a picture so vivid it becomes undeniable. And make no mistake, visualization is not idle daydreaming. It is not fantasy. It is a deliberate training of the mind, a practice that athletes, generals, philosophers, and creators have used for centuries to turn potential into reality. Why does it work? Because your brain cannot clearly distinguish between something vividly imagined and something truly lived. Neuroscience proves it. When you rehearse success in your mind, your brain and body prepare for that success as if it has already happened. Belief takes root before the event begins. Picture an athlete standing on the track. Before the race has even started, they've run it thousands of times in their mind. They've felt each stride, seen every breath, pushed to the finish line. Again and again. By the time the gun fires, they aren't hoping. They are rehearsed, certain, ready. Now compare that to the person who never pictured victory, who walks up to the line with clouds of doubt. The difference is not talent. It is mental preparation. One has practiced belief. The other has practiced fear. When you fail to visualize your future, you hand the pen to self-doubt, and doubt always writes a tragedy. But when you reclaim the pen and picture the life you want, the battles you will win, the person you are becoming, you silence the whispering voice. You force your mind to rehearse triumph instead of defeat. The Stoics had their own version of this practice, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. They pictured future obstacles not to paralyze themselves, but to prepare, to strip fear of its sting. And so can you. Visualize not only your victories, but also your challenges, and see yourself rising through them. When you have already rehearsed strength, doubt has nothing left to argue with. So how do you practice this? Begin small. Close your eyes. See yourself succeeding in something you have hesitated to attempt. Run it in your mind until it feels real. That vision becomes the antidote to doubt, and with practice, it becomes the blueprint of your future. Picture it vividly. Every tiny detail. The clothes on your body, the atmosphere of the room, the emotions surging through your veins, the words falling from your lips, the faces of those who witness you. Don't just watch this moment in your mind, feel it. Let it settle deep into your nervous system as if it has already unfolded in reality. Practice this daily, and soon your body will respond not with fear, but with recognition, as though it's stepping into a memory. Now widen the frame. Envision your life 1 year from today, stripped of doubt. How would you carry yourself? How would your voice sound? How would your steps echo? What choices would you boldly make that you once feared? The more you paint this inner picture, the more it begins to pull you forward like gravity itself. A vision so magnetic that it shapes your present actions. Doubt loses its strength because it cannot fight against a mind that has already rehearsed victory. Some reject visualization, dismissing it as unrealistic. But pause and ask yourself, what's truly unrealistic? Taking the time to build a vivid mental blueprint of the life you desire, or wandering without direction, hoping that confidence will just appear? Self-doubt thrives where there is no clarity. Visualization creates clarity, and clarity is the death of doubt. Here lies the mindset shift. Stop surrendering your future to doubt's fearful brushstrokes. Begin painting it yourself, with vision, with intention, with power. See yourself strong, unshakable, capable, long before the world recognizes it. Because once you have seen it clearly within, it becomes infinitely easier to manifest outwardly. Hold that vision with consistency, and doubt will grow silent. Not because it ceases to exist, but because it no longer has the authority to claim you're lost. You already know the path. You've already glimpsed the destination. That is the power of visualization. It is not daydreaming, it is mental conditioning. With it, hesitation gives way to momentum, fear transforms into direction, and uncertainty dissolves into clarity. A mind that knows its destination has no room left for doubt. But here's another battlefield: the balance between ego and humility. Self-doubt loves extremes. On one side, false humility shrinks you so small, you erase yourself. You undervalue your worth, belittle your achievements, and convince yourself you're unworthy of trying. On the other side, inflated ego swells you up so fragile that the smallest challenge or criticism can pierce and shatter you. Both extremes are fuel for doubt. Too much humility convinces you you're not enough. Too much ego keeps you terrified that someone will expose your mask. The shift comes in balance, to walk with quiet confidence rooted not in arrogance, but in truth. To hold humility not as weakness, but as strength. Ego itself isn't the villain. A grounded ego allows you to stand tall, protect your boundaries, and affirm your worth. But, unchecked, ego blinds you. It tricks you into denying your flaws, overestimating your strength, and living in constant fear of being unmasked. Ironically, the bigger the ego, the bigger the doubt. Because deep inside, you know the image you project isn't the full reality, and humility, without balance, is just as dangerous. It silences your voice, kills your initiative, and convinces you others always know better. This false humility doesn't shield you, it paralyzes you. And in that paralysis, self-doubt whispers its cruelest lines. See? You stayed silent because you weren't good enough. The Stoics understood this balance with mastery. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, constantly reminded himself of his humanity, that power is fleeting, that pride is foolish. Yet he never abandoned his duty or denied his strength. He embraced humility in his mortality, but he carried the full weight of his authority. That is balance, acknowledging limits without being limited, knowing your worth without inflating it. So how can you live this balance? First, radical honesty with yourself. Speak your strengths without shame. Too many bury their gifts to avoid being called arrogant, but hiding your light only strengthens doubt. And equally, admit your flaws, without fear. Denying them makes you fragile. When others expose them, you collapse. But when you've already acknowledged them, their sting disappears. Honesty steadies you. Second, change how you respond to both praise and criticism. Let praise encourage you, but don't let it define you. Let criticism teach you, but don't let it destroy you. In this middle ground, self-doubt cannot grip you, because your worth no longer swings with the opinions of others. Third, anchor your confidence in action, not in image. Ego wants to look confident. True confidence comes from being confident, through consistent acts of courage, through risks taken despite fear, through steadiness under pressure. Each courageous act builds a foundation that doesn't need exaggeration or denial. And as that foundation strengthens, doubt fades into silence. Think of those rare people who embody this balance. They don't boast, yet you feel their presence. They don't apologize for existing, yet they remain approachable. Their magnetism comes from authenticity, and authenticity is the soil where doubt cannot grow. Doubt feeds only on distortion, either inflated or diminished. So here is the mindset. Shift, reject the extremes. Do not bury yourself in false humility, and do not puff yourself up with empty ego. Stand grounded in truth. Acknowledge your gifts, admit your flaws, carry yourself with dignity. In that balance, you kill doubt, not with loud declarations, but with quiet certainty. You free yourself from constantly proving or questioning. You become steady, untouchable, unshaken. And in that steadiness, self-doubt withers and dies. But the war doesn't end there, because when life knocks you down, when rejection strikes, when failure cuts deep, that is where doubt strikes hardest. In the ashes of a setback, it whispers its most venomous words: "You weren't ready, you're not capable, you'll never rise again." So many people hear that inner voice and take it as truth. They give up after the very first rejection, retreat after a single mistake, and carry each setback as if it were a permanent scar carved into their identity. But setbacks are never evidence that you're inadequate. They are proof that you dared to step forward, that you acted, that you lived. They are signs of engagement with life. The real shift, the one that dismantles doubt at its core, is learning to rise from setbacks with resilience, to view each fall not as weakness, but as training that makes you indestructible. Resilience doesn't mean pretending failure doesn't sting. Pain is real. Rejection burns. Disappointment cuts deep. But resilience is the choice to rise anyway. It is the vow that no matter how many times life knocks you down, you will stand back up, this time carrying lessons instead of wounds. Champions aren't defined by never losing. They're defined by never letting loss define them. Every stumble becomes part of their foundation, not the reason for collapse. Think of Thomas Edison. He endured thousands of failures before finally creating the light bulb. Imagine if he had surrendered to self-doubt after attempt 1 or attempt 50 or even 500. Doubt would have whispered, "Stop embarrassing yourself. Clearly you're not capable." But instead, he reframed each failed attempt as progress, one more step toward success. That mindset is resilience, and resilience leaves doubt without a weapon, because the story stops being about failure and becomes about refinement. The Stoics knew this truth well. Seneca wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Adversity is the grindstone of character." Each setback is friction that sharpens you, strengthens you, and prepares you. Self-doubt wants you to treat hardship as a stop sign. Resilience reframes it as the whetstone that forges strength. Once you accept this, doubt begins to wither away. So how do you train this resilience in daily life? First, reframe. When you face a setback, stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and instead ask, "What can this teach me?" That single shift transforms failure from punishment into preparation. You no longer see yourself as cursed or unworthy. You see yourself as a student in training. And the mind that is learning cannot waste time doubting. It is too busy growing. Second, shorten your recovery time. Many people waste weeks, months, even years replaying a single failure, feeding doubt like fuel to a fire. Instead, think like a champion. Process the pain, extract the lesson, and move forward. The faster you rise, the less room doubt has to entrench itself. Champions don't linger in the ashes, they return to the arena. And each re-entry is proof that stumbling is never the end. Third, root resilience into your very identity. Don't say, "I failed." Say, "I am someone who always gets back up." Make resilience part of who you are, not just something you practice occasionally. When you define yourself as the person who always returns, doubt loses its sharpest weapon. Because no matter the outcome, the story is never final. You will rise again. Now picture your own setbacks, the opportunities missed, the moments of embarrassment, the doors slammed shut. What if you reframed every single one as training? What if rejection became practice for resilience, and failure turned into weight on the barbell of your character, making you stronger with every lift? In that light, the story doubt tells you collapses. It can't say you're finished because you've already chosen to keep moving forward. Here's the mindset shift. Setbacks are not proof of incapability. They are proof that you are striving, that you are alive inside the arena. Resilience turns wounds into wisdom and losses into lessons. Once you embrace resilience, self-doubt loses its grip because it cannot conquer someone who refuses to stay down. The fall is never your identity. The rise is. Each recovery becomes another piece of evidence that you are far stronger than you once believed. And with enough evidence, self-doubt has nowhere left to hide. But here's the deeper truth. Self-doubt rarely arrives like a storm crashing into your life. It creeps in slowly like a fog seeping through the cracks. It grows in the spaces you leave unguarded, the chaotic mornings, the aimless days, the restless nights. Without rhythm, without anchors, your mind becomes fertile ground for insecurity. That is why building daily habits is not just about productivity. It's about survival. Habits are the scaffolding of stability, and stability starves doubt. When you shape your days with intention, when you begin and end with grounding rituals, your mind loses its chance to spiral into insecurity. Think about it. Doubt surfaces most often in idle moments, when you're lying awake at night, scrolling endlessly, procrastinating on the work you know matters. In those gaps, the whispers appear. You're falling behind. You're not disciplined. You're not enough. But when you fill those gaps with intentional habits, small acts of clarity, focus and care, doubt has no oxygen to grow. You replace chaos with structure, confusion with order. Daily habits are not glamorous. No one cheers when you meditate for 10 minutes, write in your journal, or stretch before bed. But these rituals are bricks in the fortress of mental strength. Each repetition is a declaration. I take myself seriously. I choose consistency over chaos. And over time, these acts build trust in yourself. Trust practiced daily becomes confidence, and confidence suffocates doubt. The Stoics lived by this truth. Marcus Aurelius began each morning by preparing his mind for the day's challenges, reminding himself he would encounter selfish, arrogant, and difficult people, yet still choosing his own response. That was his habit, a mental rehearsal. Epictetus trained himself daily to distinguish what is in his control and what is not. A life anchored in clarity is never an accident. The Stoics didn't stumble upon wisdom in flashes of inspiration. They built it through routine. Philosophy to them wasn't a subject to think about occasionally. It was a daily discipline. They understood that what you practice every single day becomes who you are. And now, modern psychology echoes the same truth. Habits are what shape identity. Every action you repeat is more than just behavior. It's a vote for the person you believe yourself to be. Meditate daily, and you're not just someone attempting calmness. You become calm by nature. Train your body each day, and you're not hoping to get fit. You are already living as an athlete in training. Identity built on consistent habits is sturdier than identity built on fleeting feelings. Once that identity takes root, doubt struggles to find a way in. So what habits truly build inner peace and unshakable confidence? Begin with the morning. Anchor your day before the world demands your attention. A few minutes of meditation, a gratitude list, even steady breathing, these are not small. They are the sparks that ignite stillness and carry it into the chaos of the day. Next, discipline habits, the ones that prove your strength to yourself. Exercise, journaling, focused blocks of work. Each one builds the muscle of self-control. Each one reinforces the truth that you can trust yourself. And finally, evening habits, reflection, reading, simple rituals that close the day with peace. The way you end your night shapes the way you begin the next morning. Sleep with clarity, and you'll rise with strength. The true power of habits doesn't lie in how big they are, but in how consistent they are. Doubt thrives on inconsistency. It feeds on the broken promises you whisper to yourself. I'll start tomorrow. I'll try again next week. That guilt of stopping and starting again is the fuel of insecurity. But when your habits stay steady, even small, they build a long chain of evidence that you can trust you. That chain is louder than the whispers of doubt. So ask yourself, honestly, if your habits are seeds, what kind of harvest are you planting right now? Chaos, distraction, inconsistency, or clarity, peace, and discipline? Because the harvest will come, whether you want it or not. And if your habits align with your highest self, what you'll reap is confidence. Here's the shift. Confidence doesn't suddenly appear in big moments. It's built quietly in small ones. Your habits are the unseen architects of your mind. Each time you follow through, you pour cement into the foundation of self-belief. Each repetition strengthens it. And slowly, that structure becomes unshakable. Habits don't make noise, but they build walls that doubt cannot break through. A day rooted in clarity grows into a life anchored in confidence. That is how doubt dies. Not with one dramatic action, but with 1,000 quiet choices repeated over time. Now let's move to the battlefield where doubt usually strikes hardest: pressure. Self-doubt rarely attacks when everything is calm. It strikes in the fire. The job interview when your voice trembles. The performance where your heartbeat drowns out your thoughts. The argument where anger hijacks your reason. In those moments, emotions scream louder than logic and doubt slips in, whispering, "You can't handle this." That is why one of the most crucial mindset shifts for killing self-doubt forever is learning emotional control under pressure. Because if you can remain calm when the stakes are highest, you send yourself the clearest message possible: I can trust me. And that trust dismantles doubt at its core. But let's be clear. Control does not mean suppression. Suppression is denial. It's pretending emotions don't exist. But what you bury only comes back stronger later. True control is awareness. It's recognizing the flood of fear, anger, or anxiety and refusing to hand it the wheel. You acknowledge the feeling, but you stay in charge. That is what separates those who break under pressure from those who rise through it. The Stoics trained this relentlessly. Epictetus said it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Pressure is neutral, a stage, an interview, a confrontation. These contain no fear by themselves. Fear comes from the story you attach. I might fail. They might laugh. I could lose everything. Change the story, and you change the feeling. Instead of, "This pressure is unbearable," you say, "This is my chance to rise." And suddenly, doubt loses its grip. Think of great athletes in the final seconds of a championship. The roar of the crowd, the weight of expectation, the clock running out. Most would crumble. Champions stay composed, not because they don't feel nerves, but because they've rehearsed control. They've faced pressure so many times in practice and in their minds that the big stage feels familiar. The nerves exist, but they don't own them. That composure is confidence, and it's available to all of us. How do you build it? Start with slowing your response. When pressure spikes, your heart racing before a presentation, your anger rising in conflict, pause. Breathe. Count a few seconds. That pause is power. In that space, you remind yourself, "I am in control." Do it enough, and you rewire your brain. Pressure no longer equals panic. It becomes presence. Next, train exposure. Doubt thrives in unfamiliar ground. The more foreign the situation, the more your emotions hijack you. So put yourself in controlled doses of pressure, speaking in meetings, practicing hard conversations, volunteering for challenges. Every small exposure is training. Each one teaches your mind, "I can handle this." And don't forget self-talk. Under pressure, doubt's voice is loud. Replace it with calm authority. Not empty hype, but truth. "I've prepared. I've done this before. I can trust myself." This isn't lying. It's recalling evidence. You've faced pressure before. You survived. You will survive again. Imagine your life if you carried composure into every storm. No shrinking back, no collapsing under eyes, no fear in the spotlight. You'd thrive, not because fear disappeared, but because you mastered your steadiness within it. That steadiness is the antidote to doubt. So here's the shift. Pressure is not your enemy. Pressure is proof that you are alive, that you are in the arena, striving for something worthy. When you master your emotions under pressure, you prove you're bigger than fear, stronger than anxiety, capable even when your body screams otherwise. And when you prove that enough times, doubt has nowhere left to live. It gets replaced by quiet certainty. "I can handle this." And now, the final weapon, discipline. If there is one soil where self-doubt grows fastest, it's in hesitation, in procrastination, in the broken promises you make to yourself. Every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," and don't, doubt multiplies. It convinces you that you're unreliable, that you'll never follow through. And once you believe that, doubt becomes your constant shadow. The antidote is discipline. Discipline is the daily proof that you are trustworthy, that you are capable, that you can count on yourself. Discipline is not just a habit, it's a superpower. And when you master it, you strip doubt of its strongest weapon. People think discipline means restriction, a joyless life. But the truth is the opposite. Discipline is freedom. It frees you from the chaos of inconsistency, the stress of half-finished work, the guilt of broken promises. Discipline is the voice that whispers, "Do it even when you don't feel like it." And every time you listen to that voice, you plant another seed of self-trust. Those seeds grow into confidence, and confidence silences doubt. Think back to the moments in your life when you felt truly solid in yourself. Odds are it wasn't when fortune smiled on you or when others showered you with compliments. It was when you followed through, when you kept a workout routine alive day after day, when you told yourself you'd finish that project and actually did it, when you resisted the temptation to quit and push just one more step forward. Those are the moments where real confidence is forged. Confidence built not on luck, but on evidence. And discipline is the tool that creates that evidence daily. The Stoics built their entire way of life on discipline. Their teachings revolved around self-mastery, governing thoughts, desires, and actions. Epictetus made it clear, freedom is impossible without discipline because without it, you remain a servant to impulse. And what is self-doubt if not an impulse? A sudden reflex of the mind that appears whenever uncertainty enters. But with discipline, you stop depending on motivation or waiting for the perfect moment. You act simply because you've trained yourself to act. Discipline starts small. Maybe it's waking up at the exact time you promised yourself, even when your body screams for more sleep. Maybe it's sticking to your study schedule, completing that piece of writing, or refusing to give in to distractions. Each of these actions is like lifting weights for your mind. At first, heavy and uncomfortable, but repetition transforms discomfort into strength. And as discipline grows, so does your trust in yourself. The link between doubt and discipline is simple. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you gather proof that you are dependable. Doubt whispers, "You won't." Discipline answers, "I already did." Doubt says, "You're weak." Discipline responds, "I've trained my strength." And over time, discipline drowns out doubt until its voice is meaningless. But there's a deeper truth. Discipline shapes consistency, and consistency reshapes identity. A person who meditates daily doesn't just practice calm, they become calm. A person who writes daily doesn't just aspire to be a writer, they are a writer. A person who trains regularly doesn't just wish for health, they embody it. Once your identity has been forged through discipline, doubt no longer fits. It cannot survive in the presence of a self that's been proven by repeated action. So how do you use this practically? Begin with the area of life where doubt is the loudest: your work, your health, your creativity. Then choose one simple, repeatable action in that space. Commit to it daily, even if it's small. Don't wait for motivation. Motivation fades. Discipline endures. Over time, these small actions stack up into undeniable evidence, and evidence is what silences doubt. Here's the real mindset shift. Discipline is not punishment. It's respect. Respect for yourself, your goals, and your future. Every time you honor your commitments, you prove that hesitation has no power over you. That steady proof destroys doubt, not in a single dramatic moment, but in the daily rhythm of consistent action. So when doubt whispers, "You can't," answer with discipline. Act anyway. Each action becomes a brick in the wall between you and insecurity. And one day, that wall will be so strong that doubt can't get through at all. That is the superpower of discipline. It doesn't just silence doubt, it eliminates the need to question yourself in the first place. Now, let's move to failure. Because failure is doubt's favorite weapon. When things collapse, when you fall short, stumble, or get rejected, doubt rushes in. It says, "See, you're not good enough. You never should have tried." And for many people, one failure becomes a permanent identity. Instead of seeing failure as an event, they start wearing it as a label. And nothing fuels doubt more than equating failure with personal inadequacy. The mindset shift that dismantles this is reframing failure, not as weakness, but as growth. Failure isn't optional. If you attempt anything meaningful, failure is inevitable. The only way to escape it is to never try at all, and that's the path to mediocrity. But here's the paradox. The more you risk failing, the more you grow. Failure isn't the end of progress. It is progress, disguised as a lesson. Think of a child learning to walk. They fall dozens of times before they ever stand steady. If we judged them the way we judge ourselves, we'd say, maybe they're not cut out for walking. But no one says that, because every fall strengthens their legs, sharpens their balance, and teaches their brain. Falling isn't proof of inadequacy, it's proof of movement. History is full of examples. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest Basketball players ever admitted, "I've missed over 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I was trusted with the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." He reframed failure as training. Every miss was preparation for victory. The Stoics echoed this truth. Seneca reminded us that setbacks are part of the human condition, not a personal curse. Marcus Aurelius wrote that obstacles aren't interruptions. They are life itself. If you treat failure as an attack on your worth, it will crush you. But if you see it as part of the process, doubt has no ground to stand on. So how do you train this? First, separate the event from your identity. Failure is something you experienced, not something you are. "I failed" is not the same as "I am a failure." Second, extract lessons deliberately. After every setback, ask, "What did I learn? What will I change next time?" This turns failure into feedback, and feedback fuels growth. Third, normalize it. The more you attempt, the more you'll stumble. Over time, failure becomes familiar. It stops feeling like evidence of inadequacy and starts feeling like tuition for greatness. Imagine if you carried this mindset daily. Every rejection letter becomes proof that you're putting yourself out there. Every lost deal becomes training for the next. Every mistake becomes another lesson sharpening your skills. In this frame, failure isn't something to avoid. It's something to collect, because each one strengthens your story. Here's the mindset shift. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the price of admission to success. Every setback is evidence that you are moving forward. Once you see failure as growth, doubt loses its sharpest weapon because it can no longer use mistakes against you. And finally, the last mindset shift. Living with purpose and clarity. Because self-doubt thrives in confusion. It feeds on fog. When you wake up without knowing what matters, when your goals feel vague, when your actions don't align with something greater, doubt fills the silence. Am I wasting time? Am I on the right path? Maybe I'm not capable of anything meaningful. Without purpose, doubt becomes your compass. With purpose, doubt has no place. Purpose doesn't have to be a grand mission to save the world. It begins with clarity, knowing what you value and living in line with those values each day. That alignment builds inner strength. When your choices reflect your principles, you no longer need to second guess. You know why you're doing what you're doing, and that alone quiets doubt. The clearer your purpose, the weaker your doubt. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, began every morning with a choice. He reminded himself of who he wished to be and how he wished to live. He knew the day would hurl distractions, temptations, and negativity at him. But by anchoring himself in clarity first, he stripped those obstacles of their sting before they could even touch him. That's the timeless lesson. If you do not define your day, doubt will. If you do not decide your direction, hesitation will. Quietly decide it for you. So how do you bring clarity into your life? You begin with one simple yet powerful question each morning. What truly matters today? Not what will look impressive, not what will simply keep you busy, but what matters. That single answer gives your day a compass, and when you act in alignment with it, when your steps match your values, you no longer chase validation. You have already defined success for yourself, but purpose requires reflection too. At night, pause and ask, did I live today according to what I value most? If yes, celebrate it. If no, adjust for tomorrow. That rhythm of reflection and correction becomes a cycle of self-trust. Over time, your life no longer feels like a string of random reactions. It becomes a sequence of deliberate choices. And when you live with deliberate choices, doubt begins to vanish. Because you don't wonder if you're on the right path, you know you are, because you chose it with intention. Clarity also demands that you cut away distractions. Self-doubt feeds on comparison. on looking sideways at what everyone else is doing, how fast they're moving, what recognition they're receiving. But purpose redirects your gaze forward, not sideways. Your clarity frees you from the trap of measuring yourself against others. Once you stop measuring, doubt stops multiplying. You no longer whisper, "Am I as good as them?" Instead, you ask, "Am I true to myself?" That single question dissolves more doubt than a lifetime of applause ever could. Think about the shift in energy. Without clarity, you wake anxious, move frantically, collapse into bed exhausted but unsatisfied. With clarity, you wake with direction, move with steadiness, endure challenges knowing they serve your greater mission. And at night, you rest, in peace. One path is ruled by doubt. The other shines with certainty. The difference isn't luck, talent, or privilege. The difference is clarity. So make purpose your compass. Make clarity your daily discipline. Even if your ultimate mission feels uncertain, choose small purposes. Show up fully at work. Be truly present with family. Strengthen your body. Expand your mind. Small purposes stack into great ones. And with each deliberate choice, doubt fades further into the background. Ask yourself right now, what do I value most? What matters enough for me to choose it today? Write it down. Let it guide your decisions. So when doubt whispers, you don't know what you're doing, you'll have the unshakable answer, yes, I do. I know what matters, and I'm living it. Because when you live each day with clarity and purpose, you don't need permission. You don't need applause. You don't need guarantees. You've already given yourself the only direction you need. And in that direction, self-doubt dies. Remember this, self-doubt is a thief. It steals human potential not by brute force, but by persuasion, convincing people to shrink, to hesitate, to silence their own voice. But we've uncovered the truth. Self-doubt is not reality. It is not fact. It is a habit of the mind. And every habit can be broken. The 12 mindset shifts you've learned are not mere theories. They are weapons. They are shields. They are daily practices forged from ancient wisdom and lived experience. Practices that dismantle doubt from every angle. When you stop seeking validation and build self-trust, when you transform pain into power and release what you cannot control, when you visualize a future so clear it silences fear, balance your ego with humility, recover with resilience, and live each day with clarity, doubt not only weakens, it disappears. And here is the ultimate truth. You are not weak for feeling doubt. You are human, but you are infinitely stronger than the voice that whispers you should hold back. The power has always been yours. It has always been waiting for you to claim it, waiting for you to step into who you were meant to become. So here is my challenge. Do not let this episode be just another video you consumed and then forgot. Take one shift, just one, and live it today. Keep that promise to yourself. Write down that vision, reframe that failure, anchor yourself in that habit. Let today be the day you finally choose trust over hesitation. Because when you do, you will feel something extraordinary. The quiet confidence of someone who no longer waits for permission to live. If this message spoke to you, share it with someone. Who needs to hear it? Comment below with the shift that resonated most with you. And above all, subscribe. Because each week, together, we will keep building one mindset shift at a time, until self-doubt no longer has a place in your life. The voice of doubt may whisper from time to time, but once you live these truths, it will never command you again. The strength to rise above it has always been yours. The only question is, will you claim it?